Well, good afternoon. It is Sunday afternoon. What is it? It is May 26th, and tomorrow is Memorial Day. So thought we would do a little live show here for a little bit this afternoon, this early afternoon. Another sneak attack to you guys. But Nick, how you doing? Good to see you. Parabot, hey, thanks for jumping in. Got a kind of a cool little show for you guys today. Paul, nice to see you. We'll get rolling in just a couple of minutes, and once a couple more folks jump in, I'll tell you what guitars and tour we're going to talk about today. Should be kind of cool. Kind of excited. You finally caught a live show, yeah. I know. My problem is I sometimes I want to like put it out, on Instagram or Facebook. I'm going to do a show, and sometimes I can, but usually I'm so far all over the place. It's hard to it's kind of hard to plan them, so sometimes I'm like, all right, I got an hour now, so I'll just do one now. But that's good though. I won't keep you guys too long, but there's just a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be talking about soon. I think you guys will definitely enjoy this one for sure. So what's everybody up to today before we get going? Anybody up to any special plans for Memorial Day tomorrow, or cookouts or anything like that? Anybody got anything extravagant going on? Not really much for me. Today I'm going to go visit a couple of friends, and tomorrow I'm just hosting a small little party at my place with my mom and dad are coming down, and some friends, aunt and uncle, and things like that. So it's going to be pretty low key, not too much. And then on Tuesday, back to work. You're working, huh? Where do you work, Paul? By the way, this is water. It's a little bit too early for vodka. Just a little bit too early. Work too, Parabot? Yeah. A lot of people working. 3M. Oh, cool. That's kind of neat. You can we can have you be our contact for space tape. You can be our space tape maker, right? And sandpaper and masking tape and all that stuff for all of our guitars. So cool. Well, hope you guys get to enjoy a little bit of today. So, all right, we'll jump right into it. Got a couple of things to just talk about, and then we'll jump right into it. The show today is going to be the guitars of Fair Warning, of the Fair Warning tour, and I thought that would be kind of something fun to talk about. There's one picture that I'm missing, and I'm hoping Johnny Bean catches this and can send me the picture. I have it, but I can't find it. Obviously, we're going to focus on probably 3 or 4 different guitars, but we're going to talk about the guitars of Fair Warning, so that should be a really kind of a fun show. And then we'll talk about some other little things. But David Ennis, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for jumping in. So just a couple of updates. My 1984 neck will be being shipped to me this week. Actually, I have a 1984 neck, but I didn't turn out the way I wanted it. Chris Hubbard did the body, came out amazing. But there's definitely some issues with the neck. It's got a wicked back bow to it, so it's almost unplayable. So I talked to Chris Hubbard the other day and Jimmy Carr. Actually, it was Jimmy Carr's neck, but it somehow ended up in, talked to Jimmy Carr and Nick Amendolara, the kid, and he said that he would do the neck for me. Somehow Jimmy had a neck and it ended up with Nick, and then Nick ended up keeping it, some kind of a deal they had, because I guess Jimmy didn't need it, so Nick had this extra maple hockey stick neck. So he said, hey, tell you what, dude, he says, I'll paint it up for you and I'll ship it out to you next week, so it should be coming next week. So the timing was perfect. So it's probably going to be even better than the one that I had. So it's kind of a cool, it's like a Hubbard Amendolara combination, because Hubbard did the body and Nick did the neck. So it's kind of cool. I'm kind of excited. It's going to be a combination guitar. It's going to be kind of neat. Hey, Craig, what's going on? How you doing? Yeah, you're right. Wood can do funny things, and I think, I don't know. The neck is definitely salvageable. It's not as bad of a back bow to where it renders it unusable, but it is it is bad enough to where I'm not really happy with it. And a couple of frets have a couple of issues. Unfortunately, I messed them up when I was trying to do a little bit of fret work to it. And I relicked it a little bit too much. So it could work, but it's really not what I'm looking for. So it's going to be cool. So the body's all done. I mean, the neck's still on the guitar, but I'm going to use it as a kind of a wall hanger type thing. So, but so that's one of the things I got going on. So next week, the 1984 will have a new neck. And it's, like I said, it's going to be a Hubbard Mandalore combination. It's kind of a unique guitar. And also Nick is sending me my new Franken Strat. My new Franken Strap body came out amazing. I'll show you guys firsthand. And here's my Frankie neck, of course. And some of you guys that have already seen the real one, you'll recognize mine's pretty close, I guess. You know, the burn marks. And from what I'm hearing from people, the real Frankie neck is not as dirty as what people thought it was. It's actually got some bird's eye in it, I guess. It's pretty clean. But the only thing not accurate about mine is Ed's Gatto tuners they had drop tabs. The tabs went straight down. Mine don't, but they are crown heads, and you can tell there's no screws in there, but all the right holes are there. So there will be, the body will be coming back from Nick. He's already sent me pictures. It looks absolutely amazing. And the nice thing about my Frankie is he did my guitar body, Nick, literally a week after he went and visited and got updated pictures of the real one. So I'm pretty fortunate and lucky that my Frankie's probably going to be one of the best ones out there, because the up-close pics that Nick got are right off the original. So the timing couldn't have been better for me. Yeah, Craig says the neck's clean. Yeah, that's kind of what I heard. Hey, Faraz, how you doing? I'm doing great. Thank you. Hope you guys are all having a good Memorial Day weekend. So basically that's what we got going on. The Frankie body will be coming in. So the Frankie will be done, and I'll be doing a special show on the Franken Strat. I have not been down to the Met to see the real one yet. I'm going to be getting out there in the next, hopefully, few weeks. I was going to try to get out there with Craig, but I ended up having to work and things, you know, this life is crazy as it gets. But I will be getting out there. But I am going to do a special show on the Frankie, and we'll keep going on that. But as far as other updates, not really too much. I got some interesting information for you guys today when we start talking about the fair warning guitars, and then we'll do another one for diver down guitars, which is going to be cool. So we can bring out the double necks and the Rastas and the ad guitars and the Neptunes and all that cool stuff. So we don't really have a lot of guitars to talk about today, because he really didn't play that many in the fair warning tour. But there are some real cool facts and information about the guitars that Ed did play. So first and foremost, obviously, you know, we're in 1981, and Ed's main guitar obviously was, you know, this is my little mini one. It's not the full size, but you'll get the point. Ed's main guitar was the Franken Strat, of course. This is my little 3/4 inch little guitars scale one that Hubbard did for me. It's pretty cool. But this was Eddie's guitar, the main one for that tour. Now, if you look behind me, you can see the life-size poster. It's a pretty cool poster. It's a big canvas type poster. A friend of mine gave me years ago. Eddie's got the knickers on and everything. He's playing the Frankie, and in that picture, it's got a white knob on it. Now, the interesting thing is the Frankie had gone through all kinds of different phases at this point. You know, we go back to 1978. You know, before it even was striped. You know, there's talk about, and we'll get into that in a separate show, but because there's a lot of information on that Frankie. There was a couple of different strats that, one is a black one, one's a like a sunburst one of Eddie playing back in like 75, 76, 77. Some people think that was the Frankie. I tend to think one of those two was the Frankie, but we'll get into that at a later time. The Frankie was obviously painted, you know, white first, or actually I think it was painted black first, and then he played it black for a little while with a Rosewood Neck. Then he painted it, then he painted it white with the stripes, pulled the tape off, pinstripes, and then the black and white Frankie as we knew it, with a Gibson sticker on that famous CBS style headstock. And the Frankie just went through numerous changes. VH2. He pulled the pickguard off, he stuck a pickup in the middle position, and he had this little, like a Gibson Les Paul um, jack plate for the knob, and it just a bunch of electrical tape jammed all over the place. And then he ended up putting the switch in the middle and putting a cut pick guard on. And then 1980, it's a little different. He's got a different kind of a pick guard on there, and he's got a different pickup. He's got a zebra pickup in there. He's got a white pickup in there, which I think might have been a super distortion, or it could have been a Duncan again. And then we get to 1981. And 1981 is when the guitar pretty much kind of started to stay consistent as far as looks. He didn't paint it anymore. There were certain things that were going to happen. Yeah, the reflector was going to get broken off because in 1984 he put a tray table on the Frankie. A lot of people don't know that. He had a tray table on the 5150. He had a tray table on the Hot for Teacher. And he had a tray table on the Franken Strat. For those of you guys that have been down there to see the real Frankie, you'll know you saw the holes in the back of the Frankie. That was a table tray. He had it. And the reason we think, and again, this is my mini one, the reason we think Eddie broke off the reflector was because he needed to put the table tray there. So he snapped off the reflector because there's holes right in this general area. And my new replica being done by the kid is going to be probably as crazy accurate as anybody can imagine. So I'm pretty excited for it. But Ben Coombs, how you doing? Thanks for jumping in, everybody. Thank you. So the Franken Strat started to pretty much stay consistent. Obviously, we know a bunch of different necks were on it. We'll get into the neck that is on the Franken Strat today in a few minutes. But quite frankly, the neck that is on the Franken Strat today is the neck that was on the Circles guitar. That is the one that is on, and we'll talk about why. I know that for a fact. It's the same neck. The neck that was on the Circles guitar back in those days is the neck that sits on the Frankie today and has been on it for a good 20 years, and it's the neck that's in the Met because it had the Schaller double tab holes in the back, and you can see the marks and the grains and everything. That's the same neck that's on Frankie today, which is kind of cool. But again, we'll get into that in a few minutes. Michael Collins, how you doing? Yeah, happy Sunday. So the Franken Strat goes through we probably went through a couple of neck changes back then. Not sure what neck it was, but it was obviously got some pictures here to show you. It was obviously a 21 fret neck, okay? And here's a pretty cool picture of Ed with it. And you guys can see, it's so bright in here. Sorry about that, guys. But it's a Strat neck, but check it out. It's got a black knob on it. All right, who knows why? We don't know why. He had a white knob on it, but now he's got a black knob on it. Not really sure why. Again, it doesn't really matter. It's a very minor thing. But Eddie was messing around, doing different things. So we'll jump right into the Frankie here, because we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the Frankie. We're going to spend more time talking about a couple of the other more rare guitars. But let's see, where's that picture I was going to show you guys? And here's a pretty famous picture of the Frankie. Again, 21 fret neck, and you can tell it's got the white knob back on it. So at some point, either before or after, Ed had a white knob on it in the Fair Warning Tour, then he switched it out for a black knob, then he went back to the white knob again. And pretty much after the Fair Warning Tour, other than some different neck replacements, the Frankie stayed pretty much exactly the same, other than just getting pounded and beat up and whatever, and reflectors snapping off and tray tables and different necks. So Eddie was constantly switching necks, and it's so hard to tell what neck Eddie was using on the guitar, because he was famous for the Strat necks, and he liked that real big fat style neck. But obviously he was using the Floyd Rose, and at 1981 is right around the time when 1981, 1982, probably Eddie had one of the first prototypes. It was obviously a whale tail, I'm sure. Floyd Rose, FRT5, FRT4, FRT5 on the Frankie, because that's right around when they started coming out with the fine tuners. If you go back 1980 for the Star guitars and stuff like that, and on the Frankie he had the non-fine tuners. But 1981, that's when you start, sometime in that middle of tours where you started to see the shift to the fine tuners. And one other little kind of an interesting fact is there's some pictures out there. I have them, but I don't have them handy. Early in the 1981 tour, Eddie had the quarter flipped upside down. It was upside down, so it was the tails side, essentially. And it had one screw through it. And at that time, the quarter was underneath the bridge, because Eddie had to have the bridge a little bit higher off the body to get his action right. So if he didn't have the quarter under, it would basically, it would float. So I don't know if they were doing trem stops back then. They could have put a trem stopper in it, from behind, underneath. You could have done the trem stopper deal. But they chose not to do that. They chose to go with the quarter, which was kind of cool. And the quarter obviously prevented the bridge from going down. And it just gave him that nice action that he needed. So, and then years later, I think 1982, 1983, 1984, sometime around after the US Festival, actually, they took the original whale tail off that guitar, off the Frankie. They doweled the holes for the Floyd posts, and they drilled new holes, because the Frankie was never in intonation. It could never be intonated, because when they initially drilled those first two holes, the guitar was way out of intonation. The actual Floyd posts, these original ones, when he took the Strat bridge off and put the first Floyd on with the non-fine tuners, they drilled them wrong. So the guitar was never intonated. And that was one of the non-fine tuner guitars. So like I said, when they put the original FRT 6, 7, whatever on the Frankie then, Diver Down era, like I said, US Festival type time frame, they redoweled them, re-drilled them, and set it right. And that's where you see the two screws that are in that right now are the black ones, but they're all chipped chrome. And he's been using pretty much a standard Floyd since then. So the Frankie pretty much went through a couple of different changes, but other than the necks and stuff like that and having some work done to it, it stayed pretty consistent. Who else we got in here? Jimmy Carr, what's going on? So that pretty much does it for the Frankie. Would have been great if Eddie's Tech had documented all the changes over the years. Yeah, it would have been, but Eddie had so many different people working on that guitar. Excuse me. Eddie had so many different people over the years working on that guitar in addition to himself. A lot of people had their fingers in the pies back then. You had the Kramer people, you had Paul Unker. I'm not quite sure what time Zeke Clark came in, but you had Zeke, you had Rudy Laren, who was his high school buddy, who was his guitar tech for a while, and actually worked with him right up through Balance, on and off and stuff like that. But so there was a lot of hands on that, and I think back in those days, nobody really cared. Nobody really thought that the Frankie was going to be the showpiece, God guitar that that it is today. I mean, I think they knew it was pretty special, obviously, but nobody really thought about really documenting too much. So basically, all the documenting we can do is just by pictures. But we're going to do a special program on the Frankie and the history of the Frankie itself, probably in a couple of weeks once I get mine back here, and I'll put it together, and we'll go through day one to present day, because there's a lot of good information on that. But continuing on, there's a picture that I was hoping to find, and I searched and searched and searched, and I could not find it for the life of me. But there's a picture out there somewhere, and Johnny Bean knows about it because we've talked about it on his show, and I have it, I just can't seem to locate it. Eddie played a couple of weird guitars, kind of one-off type things, in the Fair Warning tour. His three main guitars in Fair Warning was the Franken Strat, the Circles guitar, and the Rude guitar, the weird shapes Rude guitar. So those were the three main ones. But every once in a while he'd break out a couple of different ones. So there's one guitar that I can't find a picture of, but and forgive me, I wished I could. But I searched and searched and searched and couldn't find it. And of course, when you're not looking for it, there it is. But it was a Flying V. There are some pictures of Eddie in the Fair Warning tour playing a Flying V. Now, I don't know what songs he was using because they're just pictures and there's not much footage of the Fair Warning tour. There's some, but the footage of the Fair Warning tour I have is obviously the Oakland stuff, which shows the Circles guitar, shows the Franken Strat. And then there's some real raw footage out there of Eddie playing the Rude guitar, which a lot of us have seen. Ben, you're right. Yeah, there's the '79 era. There's the Dean guitar he had. Obviously the Dragon Snake, some really cool guitars. Not sure if he had those on tour with him. There doesn't seem to be any documentation of those guitars during the Fair Warning tour, but he very well might have, yeah. He very well might have. And we'll get into those guitars when we do a 79 era show, 79, 80, whatever. But the Flying V was something that made a couple of appearances here and there. And I'll show you guys the picture when I find it at a later show when I can locate it, unless it happens to pop up here. I sent a couple messages out to some folks to say, hey, if you guys got that picture, send it to me. I'm doing a show. But another guitar that he didn't play very often, and some of you guys remember that blue-bodied, red striped with electrical tape Yamaha guitar that made some surprise appearances and some photographs a couple of years ago during the Women and Children First tour. That was kind of weird, you know. It's like, what the heck is this guitar? Is it blue with red tape on it? You guys remember that? If not, we'll talk about that guitar again. But this was kind of like the same thing. So this particular guitar, it's hard to see. Here's the picture of it. And again, I apologize my phone, but here's a picture of Ed in the Fair Warning tour. And look at that guitar. We've seen this picture before. It almost looks like a Destroyer, a Star type guitar. The headstock's more of a Gibson-ish style, all right? But if you look at the top horn, all right, we never really knew what it was. Eddie's got electrical tape on it. Well, come to find out, here is the gentleman that actually built that guitar. And what does it look like? It's a cat. The guitar is made of a cat body. The body's like a cat. You see the head, and then the tail, and then the legs. It's kind of interesting. All right. Now, that particular guitar was given to Eddie, the one that Eddie's playing right here. And again, Eddie was trying all different kinds of cool stuff back then. You know, he didn't play these guitars exclusively, obviously. We did break them out once in a while, try them. The guitar was basically called the Cat. And you'll, yeah, it does. It looks like a Dean Razorback. It's kind of like that. The gentleman that made the guitars, this guy's name here is John Gatto. John Gatto. And he played and plays in a band since then and today called the Good Rats. All right? And this guitar is called the Cat. And it's a custom guitar, as we talked about, shape of a cat. And you can see the headstock. It's got the ears, looks like a face and everything. So it's a definite total custom guitar. So this guy, John Gatto, met Ed back in, met up with Ed, I should say, back in 81. And he gave Eddie this guitar. So Eddie was messing around with it. And so he put tape on the top of the horn to, you know, so it didn't look quite so goofy like a cat. And he was just messing around with it. And he had tape down, you know, in here too and everything. So it's kind of cool. So that's a guitar that made an appearance in Fair Warning. And again, the guy's name is John Gatto, and he plays for the Good Rats. Now, the other thing is Dave Nesdahl knows John Gatto very well. It's funny, when we were talking about some of that information with that particular guitar, we've seen the picture with Eddie for a long time, but when we just found out about, you know, this guy from the Good Rats and the guitar that he gave to Ed and everything and where it came from, we just found that out. That was only kind of realized by our group of folks, I guess I would say, probably pretty recently. So I was talking to Nesdahl about it one day, and Nesdahl was like, yeah, I know him real well. I've been a friend with him for years. He played in the Good Rats, and so we're like, wow, it's just kind of cool how small of a world it is. But that's a guitar that Eddie had played during the Fair Warning tour, and it's kind of neat. So those are two more rare guitars, okay, that you didn't see him play very often. But the Flying V, which could have been the Flying V that Eddie was using back in 78, 79, because he was using a Flying V back in 78, 79 live. And he was also using a Black Explorer, which was carved and painted into the Dragon Snake guitar by the guy named John Sterry. So Eddie was definitely messing around with some different guitars then. So the Cat guitar and the Flying V, the two rare ones, Fair Warning. And obviously the Franken Strat as the main guitar. Ben Coombs, yeah, it seems like Dave knows everybody. Yeah, Dave knows a lot of folks. He really does. And that was some really interesting information when Dave was like, yeah, I know that guy real well. So it'd be nice to actually talk to that guy sometime and find out, how that. We know he gave Ed the guitar, but it'd be nice to get the story of how that all materialized and everything. So maybe one day we'll get a chance to interview the guy. We'll see. All right, let's just look at some questions here before we go on. Let's see. I think he liked the duck headstock Kramer neck at the US Festival. Yeah. Again, we'll do a complete show on the Frankie real soon. That'll probably be one of the next shows. Maybe that or the Diver Down one. And that Frankie's obviously talked about that. But I want to do a specific show on the Frankie, like the 5150, because it's such a huge guitar with so much information and many changes over the years. But yeah, he did. He liked the chicken hawk neck on that. Let's see what else. I saw a photo of Eddie's guitars from around '79. There was a Dean. Yep, we talked about that. It was in a book. Ben Coombe says that McNamara was showing on Johnny's show Friday night, like 312 page. What book is that, Ben, and what guitar are we talking about? Are we talking about the Dean guitar, or are we talking about the Flying V? And yeah, the Yamaha is really cool. That was kind of a neat guitar. That was one that we never saw. You guys got to remember one thing too. Back in those days, everybody was trying to get an endorsement deal with Ed before the Kramer time, okay? We're talking like 78, 79. Well, 78, Ed was doing his own thing with the Frankies, and he was just Frankensteining parts together and making all kinds of guitars and doing the Destroyer thing and all that. But around 79, 80, everybody was like, whoa, this guy's really crushing it here. This band Van Halen is like #1. They were just crazy popular. And everybody, Eddie was winning all the guitar polls and everything. So it's pretty cool, no doubt. But everybody was looking to get an endorsement deal with Eddie. You had Fender after him, you had Gibson after him, you had companies like Yamaha, you had companies like, obviously, Kramer. I don't think Steinberger had really gotten, well, they were coming along, they were out, but there was a whole bunch of companies coming after Ed in those days, and Ed really hadn't made up his mind, and we all know the story. The Rockinger Bridge was shown to Ed, and then the whole Kramer thing started, so, with Gary Kramer and Dennis Berardi and all that, and Ed ended up signing up with Kramer. So that's kind of how it went. But back in those days, you had companies like Yamaha in the 1980 show probably just said, hey, Ed, here you go, check this out, here's a guitar, play this, and he'd try it out, play it live, whatever, painted it blue, striped it with paint, So he was always trying things like that. So a lot of these guitars were just Ed tinkering around. Maybe he didn't have any intentions of doing deals with these guys and their companies, but he was definitely checking some different stuff out. Charvel was definitely after Eddie, you're right. And as a matter of fact, obviously, the Bumblebee was a Charvel, and Eddie was, he loved that guitar. Obviously it's buried with Dimebag now, bless his heart, R.I.P., rest in peace. But that was a guitar that Eddie really loved, but Eddie had a falling out with Charvel because Charvel started making a bunch of striped guitars and kind of started capitalizing off of the, the Van Halen one pickup, one knob, Super Strat type guitars. So Eddie kind of pushed Charvel away. But even though he played Charvel guitars, he never really had a deal with them, an endorsement deal. He had the Charvel Star, which obviously we've talked about. He put the Dan Electro neck on it and everything, and he had the Bumblebee. But now he was kind of going back to the Franken Strat and just kind of doing his own thing. So Annie was still working with companies like Boogie Bodies. So we get into 1981, and we're in the middle of the tour, or beginning of the tour, and Eddie has this guitar, the Circles guitar, all right? And it's basically kind of like a Bumblebee type guitar, being that it's rear loaded. All right, or I should, yeah, well, that's what front, rear loaded, okay, because your electronics are in from the back. It's got one pickup, which is straight, not slanted, and one knob, all right, and it's got the input jack like a Strat. It wasn't under here like the B or back here, it was on the side, so it's kind of a combination of a Fender and like a Charvel. So Eddie paints this guitar up, or somebody did it for him, all right, and we don't really know the exact story on this, has a Fender Strat 21 fret neck, all right, and basically it's called the Circles guitar, all right, or otherwise known as the Unchained Guitar. So Eddie did some interviews back in those days, and he was looking for the perfect sound. So he started experimenting with guitars that had 2-inch thick bodies, 2 inches, okay, versus the 1 3/4 like a normal one, all right, Strat style. So he's doing this with these 2-inch thick bodies in an effort to try to get more resonance. You know, like if you put a guitar on a coffee table, all right, and you're not plugged in and you just strum a chord, okay, you're going to get a certain amount of resonance with that because it's going to resonate through the coffee table and everything, even acoustically. So Eddie's mindset was, okay, I got everything connected, I got the Floyd sitting flush to the body. It's hard to tell if Eddie was just using this as a pickup ring or if he actually did have them spring-loaded. I think on this one they were spring-loaded, and also with the B they were. But he was still, you know, he hadn't quite figured out have the pickup mounted flush to the body, but he was basically doing everything he could to get that ultimate sound. So he started experimenting with these 2-inch thick bodies, which he thought was going to offset the brassy kind of tinny sound that some of the bridges back then were giving. Because back in those days, Eddie was kind of like, Rockinger, you know, Floyd, yeah, they're kind of cool. But, you know, but he was trying to compensate for a thin sound, so he was trying to a thicker body. And he was using mahogany a lot, okay? So that's the Circles guitar. Had a 2-inch thick body. Now mine doesn't. Mine is not a 2-inch thick body. It's it's just a regular size body. But we'll show you my weird shapes. That is a 2-inch thick body. But has basically a woman shape here. You can tell the feet, the ass, the boobs, and the head, which is the tone knob. And it's got some interesting stuff here. It's got circles, all right? Now, the tadpoles, I call them tadpoles because that's what they look like. This is something that there's not a lot of pictures of these, and unfortunately EVH, when they made these replicas, they did not get that right. They just had them too small. But this is what the real one looked like. Okay, it looked like that. The tadpoles looked like that. I can prove that to you right now, unless you see a really glary phone. All right, but there's a few pictures out there like this one. And again, yeah, it's going to be tough to see. Oh, maybe you can see it. Zoom in a little bit. You can see there we go. There's a good one. See, those are tadpole style. They're not arrows. They're not the small ones like EVH did. That's what they looked like. All right. And here's another one. Picture of Ed and Mike backstage. And there's another good shot. Oh, where is it? What that would look like. There we go. That's about the best one you're going to get. See? So they're like a tadpole type look shape. All right. So that's pretty much what they're supposed to look like. All right. Now on the back of the guitar, it said, "Bye, see you later." All right. Now this is not the EVH version, obviously. I don't have that one anymore. This is a custom one that I actually got from Dave Nesdall. Nick did the paint job. It's got the kidney bean route. And you know, no numbers or any indications on the neck plate. I got some VH picks here. It had some really cool stuff. It had like some splooge paint drip here. Just some neat things, you know, some little additions here that EVH didn't catch up with. But then again, I'm not slamming the EVH version. They're great guitars. That's more of a tribute guitar. It's not an exact replica, where these are more exact replicas. All right, now back in those days, obviously it was a whale tail. This is a 1984 reissue bridge. It's got a black D-tune on it, which obviously weren't around then, but I have it on there because it matches the black screw, so it's a little bit more discreet. I do have the original whale tail style nut on this, and I kind of whale tailed the bridge out. I took the springs out from underneath, so you get a nice flush, bottom out when the bass hits the body. Got a big block in the back, and Eddie had 2 springs in it, and for some reason, Eddie had the jack plate upside down on this guitar. Nobody really knew why. I think he was using a 45-degree angled plug, and maybe that was a little bit different, because then when it went 45 degrees, like mine. You plug it in, and it actually points down, and you kind of wind it around. And it does stay out of the way. It actually works pretty well, believe it or not. But again, Eddie was just being Eddie, and he was trying all new different kinds of things. Now, there is some speculation, and I don't know, but I have a couple of friends that know this guitar very well, that say that this was actually not black, it was midnight blue and white. And I've known about this for many, many years. There's no proof of that because none of the pictures show that. But if you look at some of the pictures with this guitar and the Rude guitar next to each other, this guitar does shine a little bit differently, but it's hard to tell. But a couple of good friends, again, I'm not going to throw their names out, they swear that this was midnight blue. And when they do these replicas, they make them midnight blue. But again, you know, well, the EVH wasn't painted midnight blue. Well, nobody remembered what it was. You know, nobody. These guys aren't nuts like we are and dissect every little thing. But there is some speculation that it's midnight blue. Is it midnight blue? Is it black? I don't know. I've had a couple of replicas that I've done of these guitars in midnight blue, a real dark midnight blue, and it looks awesome. But I kind of chose to stay with the black for mine. And again, just doing this, you can tell, you know, when you look at old pictures, color or black and white, it's very difficult to determine that. So let's just, before we go on, let's finish up on this guitar, then we'll go through a couple of comments here. So now we're going to get into the neck. The neck on the on this guitar, on the Circles guitar. It's a 21 fret Strat neck, okay? And pretty basic, right? Nothing too crazy. But it had Schaller double tabs on it, and these are real Schaller double tab tuners. Very, very, very hard to find today. Very hard to find. And if you can find them, they're pretty expensive. All right. The 5150 has one. That's the seventh one they put on there. It's a Schaller double tab. Just added it on there when they moved the original Gatto down here on the bottom. Now back in the 70s and early 80s, Schaller was cranking these things out like by the thousands. They were making double tabs all over the place. That's what the Ibanez Shark Destroyer has on it, Schaller double tabs. 3 gold and 3 chrome. Johnny, are you watching? Hold on one second. He's getting back to me on my message, so I'm going to see if he has. See if he can help me out with that picture. So Schaller double tabs it had on it, and there's pictures to prove it. Thank goodness to the Eddie Van Halen book. So if we get into, now this is probably one of the best ones to go off of. This picture here of Eddie holding up the Bicelator guitar. If you look real close, those are, you can't, it's too blurry. Those are definitely Schaller double tabs. You can see them plain as day. And there's another picture. Right here. At the end of the tour, all right. If you guys can see, those are definitely Schaller double tabs. All right. So you got a 2-inch thick body. Interesting paint job. Bicelator in the back, because Eddie used to turn the guitar upside down like this at the end of the show, and that was how they said goodbye. And he had this neck on it, had Schaller double tabs on it, and this guitar was used primarily for Unchained. All right, he might have played it for a couple of other songs too. I'm not sure, but it was definitely used for Unchained. It was probably the guitar that was tuned down to drop D, because again they didn't have drop D tuning, so it would be tuned down to drop D. And when they'd come out for their encore, Eddie would grab this guitar and he played Unchained on this one. All right, so this was basically the Unchained Circles guitar. So really, really cool. Now, interesting fact, and I'll find a picture for you guys, because this is pretty cool. And I didn't even know this until Chris, Nick, and Dave and we all talked about it maybe a month or two ago, a couple of months ago, and maybe a lot of other people knew about this, but I really didn't until recently. And that is, if I can find a picture here. All right. So here's a picture of the Franken Strap. All right. Today. This is a picture from the Met. Now look at all those holes in the back. All right. That means that this neck had shallower double tabs on it. All right. Now I can't show you in detail, but what I can tell you is if you look at this neck back in '81, all right, by pictures, there is not this particular one because mine's just mine's a music craft. But if you look at this particular neck, there are spots on the fingerboard and some spots on the headstock on the front and a couple on the back of grain and just how the patterns of the wood show that are exactly 100% identical to the neck that's on the Franken Strat today. All right, and we know that in 1981 it was a different neck that was on the Frankie then. Okay, it wasn't the neck that's on it now. So the neck that Eddie had on the Fair Warning guitar, okay, Circles guitar with the shallower double tabs, is the neck that is on that Franken Strat, the main one today. And that's I would bet $1 million on it even if I had it. And it's been debated, but I'm going to go ahead and say it's true. It's the same exact neck. So the neck that's on that Frankie today was the neck that was being played in the Fair Warning tour on the Circles guitar. Okay. Because after the Fair Warning tour, Eddie took that neck off, painted this body in the Rasta, okay, because this is the guitar that became the Rasta, and we'll talk about that in the Diver Down show we do, and had a different neck on it. And eventually, one day, that neck headstock got painted to the same pattern as the body. All right, not in the Diver Down era when he played it, but probably around end of 83, 84-ish maybe is when he painted it, and then Dweezil Zappa ended up getting the guitar. But definitely some cool information. The neck that's on the Frankie today and has been on it for 20-something years is the neck that was on the weird Circles guitar. Pretty cool. All right, let's just see what we got for some questions. A new Young Guitar book Jason found. I had the yep. The Young Guitar books are amazing. Yeah, yep. I have that one too. Gary Kramer wished me happy birthday last week. That's pretty cool, man. Hey Jim Gavigan, thanks. How you doing, buddy? Sperm poles, not tadpoles. How you doing, Sean? Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly why the jack is rotated. Yep. I think because it works better with a 45. Exactly. Did the Circles get repainted at some point? Yes, it did. It got repainted into the Rasta Strat because the Circles guitar is the Rasta Strat, and we'll talk about that in the Diver Down show. If you look closely at the Rasta Strat, you can see the circles and the woman's body and the biseal later and the paint job, which is kind of interesting. That's a nice looking neck. Yeah, it is. Yes, Rasta was the Circles guitar. It was used for the drop D songs. Okay, it was definitely used for the drop D songs. And Johnny, hey, how you doing? Glad you could jump in. Johnny, the picture I'm talking about, we talked about the cat guitar that John Gatto from the Good Rats, gave Eddie, and Eddie played it in the Fair Warning tour. The picture I'm talking about is there's a picture of the Fair Warning tour of Eddie playing a Flying V in Fair Warning. There's pictures of it in 78, 79, and the Dean guitar and all that too. I've seen those. But there's a picture that you showed us live on the show, and I have it somewhere, but it's Eddie. He doesn't have a shirt on. There's no shirt. He's wearing white pants, and he's playing a Flying V. And I can't find it for the life of me. But if you happen to find it before the show's over, just send it to me and I'll show it. But if not, no big deal. So, okay guys, so we've covered a few guitars. We've covered the Flying V. We've covered the cat guitar. We've covered the Frankie. We've covered the Circles guitar. So let's talk about one more guitar that Eddie had on the Fair Warning tour, which is still, I think Chip Ellis has it today because it's been wolfganged out a little bit. We'll talk about that. We're going to jump back to 1980, okay, on this particular guitar. Now, if you go back to 1980, and we're looking at Eddie in the studio, all right, we see this guitar right here. It's a Strat. It's a wooden body, okay, with Strat neck, one pickup, one knob, and it's got the, let's see right here, and it's got the, well, you can't quite tell on that one, but it's got the jack plate on the bottom, okay, on the side, excuse me, like a Strat. So it's set up like a, you know, it's a rear-loaded type guitar with one pickup, no pick guard, but it's got the jack plate on the side just like a regular Strat. So Eddie was kind of tooling around with that guitar in 1980, okay? Now, we don't know if that's the one that became the Circles guitar or if that's the one that became the Rude Weird Shapes. It was one of the two. One of those guitars became those, because that's right around the time that Eddie was saying I'm having boogie bodies make me these 2-inch thick bodies so they can resonate a little bit better with a Floyd. And yes, Ibanez Dweezil does have the Rasta Strap. So we're in 1980. And there's actually one more picture here I want to show you guys of this. We're in 1980, and Eddie's got this unfinished body, and he's really kind of digging it. Now here's the famous picture that a lot of you guys have seen. There it is the pickaxe picture. So Eddie's got the Charvel, the Bumblebee, I mean, well, it is a Charvel, the Megazone, the Ibanez Destroyer, the Les Paul, the Dragon Snake, there's the Frankie, he had a white pickguard on there, and there's the Star, looks like a Gibson 335, an acoustic, there's that Dean right here that we've been talking about, right here, right? And there's that 2-inch thick bodied, unfinished, you know, bodied Strat, maple neck, kind of interesting. So Eddie was kind of playing around with that. So that was back in 1980 when he had that made. So he had 2 of them made, all right? Now here's the funny thing, or the interesting thing, I should say. If you go into this book, it's also got another picture, which I think is really cool, and it's proof. So here's Eddie sitting here working on his Franken Strat. He's using some dioxide probably to spray in the electronics and the volume knob with the Frankie before the show, right? And here is, sorry for the glare, guys. Here is the Weird Shapes guitar, right? Already painted, excuse me, here is the Circles guitar. It's already painted. You see bifeolator, right? 2-inch thick body. Now look at the other side. There's that same guitar. So it was either the one we just saw or it's a different one. Eddie had another one made, okay? There's another identical one to the Circles guitar, except it has a Rosewood Strat neck on it. 2-inch thick body, set up exactly the same as the Circles guitar, all right? Now this picture is from the beginning of the Fair Warning tour, okay? So Eddie was playing, just looking at Johnny's message. I don't see a picture coming through yet, but I'll hold off. So Eddie was playing Frankie, he was playing the Circles guitar, and there's also a picture that I couldn't find on my phone, but there's a picture of Eddie in warm-up, sound check, playing that unfinished guitar just in sound check. So he really liked that guitar too, all right? So at some point in the beginning towards middle of the tour, Eddie decides to paint that guitar. Now, here's where we're not sure what neck was on it first or not. So here is that unfinished guitar painted into the Weird Shapes Rude guitar. And it's got a rosewood neck on it with a Dan Electro stylish kind of headstock, okay? It's kind of an upside down stratty kind of Dan Electro type neck. No, Johnny, that's the one I showed. That's the Cat guitar. We already showed that picture. It's one of a Flying V, but no, we already showed that pic. But that's the one I already showed. Yeah, thanks. But so he's got this rosewood neck with that headstock. That is not the headstock that was on the, or that is not the neck that was on the Star. A lot of people said, well, he just put wood on the side and doweled it. I don't believe that's the case. I think that this was a separate neck that Eddie had made. I'm almost positive of that. And the one that was on the Star was a different one. Now this neck, I'm not sure if this neck was on it first after he painted, or if it was on it after he painted it. Okay, I'm not sure. It's hard to say. But he had that road. We'll just say that was the first one that he had on there. Okay, after he painted the body in the weird shapes. Now underneath the neck plate of this Rude Weird Shapes guitar, it says EVH Rude. All right, and there's some young guitar magazines. Actually, I got one handy right here that I can show you guys. Pretty cool, actually. So it's going to be maybe kind of hard to see, but here's the Weird Shapes. All right. They call it the Unchained Guitar, but it's not. This is not the Unchained. He might have played Unchained now, we're not sure. But see under the neck plate says EVH Rude. So that's why they call it the Rude guitar. All right. Oh, and here's that Dean guitar that everybody's talking about. Ben Coombs was talking about it. Yeah. Really cool guitar. So Eddie had that guitar originally, we'll say, with the Rosewood Neck on it. And then at some point in the Fair Warning tour, he switched it out with a maple neck. And let's see some pictures of that. Okay. Now here's the Fair Warning tour, Eddie. Rude Weird Shapes guitar, right? Now he's got a maple neck on it. All right. And I'm really thinking that was after. I think that was after. I think he put the maple neck on. I could be wrong. It's so hard to tell because there's really no documentation. Here's another one of Eddie playing the Rude guitar. Look at that, 2-inch thick body. You can see it's so obvious. Maple neck on it, right? So that guitar, the Fair Warning tour, had basically 2 necks on it. Maybe 3, maybe 4 or 5. We don't know. All right. Now here's my version of it. All right. This is, again, an extremely accurate version. This is a 2-inch thick body, so it's real fat, and the horn, or not the horn, but the body bevel, or whatever you want to call it, is very long. It's different than a regular Strat. It's really cool. 2-inch thick body, and it's got a Duncan Super Distortion in it, Floyd Rose. I also have a detune on this one. This is also black, so it kind of hides itself a little bit better, a little bit more discreet. And I got this neck on there. All right, compliments of Scott Smith and Musicraft. So, because I always like this version of it better. A lot of people hate this headstock. They're like, oh, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, it's kind of ugly, but it's cool and it's different. And you know, when you got as many guitars as I do, it's different. It's kind of nice to mix it up a little bit. This was a tilt back, believe it or not. It was a tilt back, and it's like a Dan Electro style. All right. And on the back of the Rude Weird Shapes, this is what the pattern looked like. To our knowledge, there was never a pickup cavity cover. We're not sure, but you know, I've never seen it. And that's what the back looked like. Now, hard to tell if these were shallow double tabs or not. I don't know. They might have been. I wouldn't doubt it if they were, because Eddie had those on all kinds of guitars. He had them on his Bumblebee. He had them on the Circles guitar. He had them on what's the other? The Destroyer, the Shark. He had them on all, because the Schaller was cranking those double tab tuners out back then in those days. They're so hard to find today. But this guitar, Eddie did not just use it for Unchained. He actually used it during the live show, the main encore, because I have some raw video footage of Eddie playing On Fire in the Fair Warning tour with this guitar. On Fire and a couple other songs. So Eddie would kind of like, as a general rule, the Franken Strat and this guitar became kind of the show players. You know, I'm not sure if he had different tunings in them or what it was, but they were kind of the main players. And then he would break out the Circles guitar and the encore for Unchained. All right. And as far as we're aware, that's pretty much kind of how things rolled for the Fair Warning tour. And again, you know, on the off times, you know, you'd see like that Cat guitar come out, you know, or you'd see the Flying V that I said Eddie played a couple of times. so Eddie was, again, he was trying different things, and he was experimenting with different sounds. Obviously, he still is to this day. And he was still searching for that perfect guitar setup, you know. What's interesting is, you know, Eddie went from the rear-loaded, one pickup, no pickguard Strat style guitars. You know, he was doing those way back in 78, 79, you know, when the Bumblebee came out, all right? And then, you know, a couple years later, he's got the Circles guitar and he's got this one, which were both unfinished bodies. So he was kind of playing with those those non-pickguard bodies. He kind of liked those with one knob without all the, you know, the routed out cavities. But the Frankie still was his main guitar. But it's kind of funny because then in 82, 83, you know, he starts playing the, you know, the ad guitar, and he's having all these, you know, Frankenstein type copies made through Kramer, and he kind of got away from it. And then he goes back to that style with the 5150, and he really never went back to the pickguard type guitars again. He really never did, except when he would play the Frankie and stuff like that. So it's kind of neat. He was still experimenting with different things. He was looking to find that right sound, what worked the best, and he never really cared much about looks. He was more or less sound, obviously. So let's see what else we got. That arm relief is huge. Yeah, it is, Ben. You're right. It's massive. It's wicked big. And this is what you get on the 2-inch thick bodies. It's a custom made body, obviously, but that's basically what Ed's was, and that's exactly what the Circles was too, and certainly the Rostic was the Circles. But yeah, they were these 2-inch thick bodies, and with these huge, massive arm reliefs. It's pretty cool. Paul, you gotta go. Hey, go cut the grass, dude. Have a good day. Contour, yes. Arm and tilt relief, huge. Yeah, contour is probably the best word for it. Yep. Yeah, call it the contour. Yeah, I was trying to think of the right name too. It's like an arm contour. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. And like we said, you know, again, it's really long and deep. It's pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of the new Wolfgangs they're doing. Actually, the standards. You know, Eddie doesn't have it on his, but it's kind of similar to what they're doing. It's a lot more dynamic than, you know, like a regular Strat style. Like here's my Hot for Teacher. You know, you can tell it's pretty short on this one. It's, you know, definitely pretty short on the Hot for Teacher, but and all the other Strats. So to conclude the fair warning piece of this video, and then we'll talk about one other thing. That's pretty much what Eddie was using for guitars. Unless there's some, I'm sure there were some other guitars out there that, you know, he might have played and tried and stuff like that we're not, you know, privy to or we don't remember. But for the most part, that's what they were, and those were the stars of the show, so to speak. Let's see if I can find a couple more pictures just to show you guys of these guitars. There's a real cool one of Eddie with the Circles guitar. You can kind of tell it's got that fat 2-inch thick body. And here's a cool picture of the Frankie back in 1981. And notice it's got a gold Floyd on it. Now that is a 22 fret neck. And this is actually a diver down picture. If they put it in the wrong spot of the book, it's a diver down picture because you can't tell, but this is actually a Kramer neck. It's one of the lawsuit necks. You can't tell. Oh, maybe you can here in the picture. If you can, I don't know if I can get it right. You can't tell, but the logo is sanded off here. It's plain as day. If you look at this, you can tell someone sanded the logo off. And I have a picture of this guitar, Eddie playing it right before that logo was sanded off. It actually says Kramer, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about that when we do the diver down one. But yeah, this is actually a diver down pick. Eddie had changed it up again. He's got the gold straight back Floyd on it. It's kind of cool. Jim Francis actually makes those replicas of that bridge. Really cool. So, in the last pictures I'll show you, evening. Kind of cool. Now here's one picture of Eddie from Fair Warning, and he's playing the Frankie. Look at that. It's got the, this is early Fair Warning, early. And the reason I say this is because he's got the white pickup in there from Women and Children First. But notice that the quarter is turned upside down with one screw. Kind of neat. But that is a Fair Warning era pick. Might have been in the studio or right when they were getting ready to go out on tour. But definitely some cool stuff. Some really cool stuff. Okay, we have nothing more questions. All right. As far as sound was concerned, I mean, Eddie was, he had that real raw sound back then. 1981 was a real dark period for the band. Obviously, you've heard that before. Eddie was having some serious issues. He didn't really think anybody was taking anything seriously, and Eddie was going down to the studio at like 3, 4 in the morning and doing his guitar parts and, whatever. We've heard that, but definitely Fair Warning was a guitar album, probably the most guitar heavy album of any of the Van Halen albums. I mean, obviously they all are because it's Eddie Van Halen playing guitar, but Fair Warning was just a real, very kind of ill-received album. It wasn't very popular except for the Van Halen fans. The tour was, but they didn't have any hits on it. I mean, Unchained obviously, became a radio, kind of a rock hit, but it wasn't a #1. And the band's talked about that in the past. It was a very dark time, and it's very dark vibes from that album, but one of the best Van Halen albums there is. Probably my favorite Roth era album. But yeah, it's some really cool stuff. Sunday Afternoon in the Park was done on that really cheapo little kind of mini Moogie type. Well, I don't know whether it was a mini Moog, but one of those little cheap keyboard type things. Wolfgang on Instagram actually did shows one of the actual one that they used, that Ed used back then for Sunday Afternoon in the Park. Those really cool sounds, so that's pretty neat. Clayton James Hicks, yes, tomorrow is Music Man Monday for sure, absolutely. All right, so that's the Fair Warning era, and before we go, I want to show you guys something cool that I did the other day. For some of you guys might have seen me on Instagram. Look what I got. I got the original auction guitar. It's the original EVH auction Kramer. This is a high gloss picture. Here's the headstock. Came out so cool. So I did some pictures on Instagram. I'm like, guys, look what came in the mail today. So whatever. So I was kind of messing around the other day, and I was thinking about I was actually going to make a replica of this guitar. I really was, and because it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. But I was kind of thinking to myself, gosh, I've got a million Kramers here. I got the Neptune. I got the Kramer Ad guitar. Obviously the Frankie and all these other ones. And I'm like, I really don't. If I make this guitar, even though I like it, it's just going to be another one that just kind of sits there probably. And yeah, it's cool for the collection. I might do it one day. But I really didn't have the money or the time right now to do another project guitar, nor do I really need it. So I was kind of dubbing around thinking about it. I'm going, I wonder if maybe I could make a wall hanger, do something a little different, maybe make like a piece of art or something. So I have this book that has, incredible pictures of this guitar. I'm not going to say where it came from because it's from a very close friend of ours, but it's got some really cool pictures. Obviously not life size, but it had a straight-on picture of the front of the guitar, and it had a straight-on picture of the back, and of the neck and the headstock. All right. And this was a 1982 Paul Unkert Kramer. Paul Unkert painted this one. It's called the Auction Guitar. It's basically the sister of the Vitas Gerulaitis guitar. It's the same exact guitar, except the Vitas guitar has a white single coil and a black humbucker, and it's got a different knob. But basically the paint job is very, very, very similar. And that's the one that's at the Music Zoo now. But this guitar is in private hands somewhere. This was, like I said, it was an Eddie Van Halen guitar. But what's interesting about this one, look, even this, look, it looks like a real guitar. Look at the wood grain on this thing. It is just insane. And it totally goes to show you what Paul Unkert was telling Dave and I and Johnny and everything when we met him back a few years ago, that, you know, they would get these raw, unfinished bodies. And look at that. Look at the paint job. I mean, this is about as high res as you can get, obviously. You can tell it looks like a real guitar. They would get these bodies that weren't even like sanded. And Eddie was like, paint it, do it up. I want it by the end of the day. And they'd be, all right, you know, spray it with white, and, you know, tape it, spray it with red, spray it with black. And it was just so, as Paul's words were, willy-nilly, just whatever. All right, here you go. And then he'd take it out in the parking lot and just skip it across the pavement like a frisbee a couple of times, throw some sheetrock nails at it, because Eddie always wanted them beat up looking. And, you know, maybe take a little bit of sandpaper to it in certain areas, like here. Eddie always wanted this area sanded, and, you know, kind of this area a little bit sometimes. And then they'd present it to him, and Eddie was like, perfect, cool, thanks, man. And he would play them, not all of them, but he would play some of them for a while. Then he'd give them away at guitar giveaways, or give them to friends, or take them on tour and warm up with. He never really played these live, as far as we know, but he did play them. And this was always one of my favorites. So what I did was, I said, you know what, I'm just, instead of building the guitar, I'm going to make a wall hanger. So what I'm working on a neck right now, and once I do that, I'm going to put this on there and make a 3D thing. It'll have the neck and everything. So it'll be a life-size guitar wall hanger, but it's going to be more of a decoration thing. So I went to, I clicked all these pictures, and I said, I wonder if I can get them blown up life-size and do this project. So I went down to Staples, and the woman was like, yeah, no problem. She's like, give us an hour. And I brought down a real guitar body, and I said, I want it the size of this. And then I gave her the dimensions of the headstock, and she did that. This is the exact size of the headstock. And I came back in an hour, and I thought blowing these up to this size was going to make it really like distorted looking and everything. But when I got it, I'm like, holy mackerel, look at this thing. It's so detailed. I mean, you can see, look at the, you know, you can see the seagulls, how nasty, like cheap, not cheap, but you can see how like spotty they were and cut out with a razor blade and everything. And again, this is just a piece of duct tape I put on there to look like a strap lock. But you can see it. Look at, you can even read the numbers on the switch in the middle. The Floyd Rose, it's a whale tail. You can tell it's a whale tail. It's got those big, he's got these big, huge prototype posts in gold. You know, I mean, it's just amazing the amount of detail on this thing. Like I said, you can see all the smooge and overspray they did. And then on the back, I don't know what RD stands for. I'm not sure. Might have been whoever painted or whatever. You can see that Eddie was using 6 screws back then. And so cool, so very cool. It came out awesome. Like I said, it looks like a real guitar. And then what I did is what I did was I had a copy of the body, front and back, copy of the headstock, front and back, and I'm going to do the neck this week. And then I cut out a piece of cardboard, glued to the shape, glued the front on, then glued the back on, then cut around the edges and made it stick. So this is basically what you get. And then I took a real eye bolt with some duct tape and actually just jammed it in between the cardboard. And the more I was going on doing this, I'm not an artist by any means. I'm more of I build real guitars. But I was having so much fun with it, I was like, this is so freaking cool. And now I don't have to build the real one because I got enough other ones, but I still have an auction guitar that is life-size, and it's going to look great on the wall hanging next to some of the other ones. So it's kind of cool. So I was showing this to my buddies. I was showing it to Johnny and Dave and Hubs and everybody, and they were like, whoa, you know, I like that. That's so freaking cool. And like I said, I tricked a few people. Some people on Instagram really thought this was the real one. I mean, the pictures that I posted, it literally looks real. I mean, even the tuners that I cut out, when you look at it from a distance, it looks like it's a real headstock, you know. So this is the auction guitar. Kind of a fun little project I worked on, and just kind of started, you know, it came out better than I thought. So the more I worked on it, the more fun I had with it, because I didn't expect it to be that cool. I thought it was going to look kind of crappy, and when I saw the definition of how everything came out, I was like, wow. So that was just something different. So let's see what we got here. See ya, Ben. Take care, buddy. Jeffro, what's going on? Thanks, buddy. Can you expand or discuss Japan Guitar Magazine featuring Van Halen content? Are all issues alike? Kind of. I mean, there's you basically. I mean, I have them all. Well, most of them. I have so many of them back from the beginning of the days up to today. You have Young Guitar, and then you have Player Magazine, and those are your two main ones. There's some other ones too. There's Burn and some different ones, and some special editions like this one here, the Guitar Man. This is a special Eddie Van Halen, edition. It's got all kinds of stuff on Van Halen's guitars and his setups and his rigs. Every one of them is a little bit different. The thing that's nice about the Japanese magazines, like the Players and the Young Guitars and these, is those guys focus on gear. All right, they take pictures that most Americans don't. I mean, any of the guitar magazines we get in the States, even going back to those days, they show pictures of Ed and the band, and you may see a stray picture of a guitar, and then he may talk about it, but they don't take gear pics. They just, that's why we didn't really have much to go on back when I started painting these things back in like 95, 96, 97. All you had was old circus magazines and stuff like that, and if you were lucky enough to find the Japanese magazines, you really had a pretty good edge on it, because they would actually pinpoint Ed's stuff, and they would take straight on pictures of the bodies and the sides and the backs and the gear that he was using. So they were more geeky on the technical end of what Eddie was using than the Americans were. So if you could find the Japanese magazines, yeah, they're really cool. And I would recommend just getting on eBay and going right through, Young Guitar, Eddie Van Halen, Player Magazine, Eddie Van Halen. And I'm not, there's a lot of good magazines out there too, American magazines from guitars and, Guitar Player and all that stuff that do have some good pictures. But the pictures that those have of the guitars are typically more like just happened to, Eddie happened to have that guitar. They don't really focus on the gear end of stuff as much, picture-wise, I mean. So that's where you're going to get the most out of those Japanese magazines. But then again, in all those magazines now, there's really not anything that you can't find online now that aren't in those, that's in those magazines. Everything's pretty much online. You just type in Eddie Van Halen guitar, and you're just going to find oodles and oodles of pictures, But if you can find the mags, yeah, they're pretty cool. They're definitely collector's items, for sure. I hope to see Eddie on tour again soon. Yeah, me too, dude. I really would love to see these guys go back out again. I mean, honestly, I'd love to see Sammy, Mike, Al, and Dave, do like a reunion tour and then, trade off songs. I mean, I know that's kind of wishful thinking, but hey, it could happen. We never know, There's been some rumors that someone in the band is sick, that we've heard on Eddie Trunk and stuff like that. I just watched a show. I hope that's not the case, and if it is, I hope everybody's okay. And just positive, good vibes to the whole Van Halen camp and everybody, and hopefully we do see something soon. Wish them the best. On that note, I'm going to see the Sammy Hagar, Michael Anthony show. I think it's the Circle on Thursday down at Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut. So that should be pretty cool. And going down with my buddy who got some free tickets, so we should have some good seats and see what happens. But so yeah, it'd be nice to see him back on tour again. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it, man. I really do. You're welcome, and I love putting the information out there. Was the lady at Staples hot? No, she was not. And now that I'm single again, and believe me, I'm paying attention to that stuff now, because I've been single for 2 weeks, so I mean, I'm kind of just joking, but I am single again, but time to have some fun again, I guess. But no, she wasn't that hot, so. And again, you guys are more than welcome. I really appreciate you guys watching the show. I hope you liked today. It was a fair warning show. My Frankie will be coming back in a few days, and I'm going to marry it up to the neck, set it up, wire it up, and we'll do a show on that. And my 84 neck will be coming, and I'll show you guys this this little project auction guitar once I get the whole neck put on it and everything. But yeah, it's pretty cool. But I want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day. For those of you that have families that have, you know, were in the wars and stuff like that, I hope you have time to spend with them, or time to look back and think of them. And just with all your friends and your family, I hope you guys have a good time. I know you guys having barbecues, or for those of you guys that got to work, whatever. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will be back really soon doing that show on the Frankie, and we're also going to do a Diver Down show, and we'll continue on with gear talks and stuff like that. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching it. Thanks, Ibanez. I appreciate it. You know, the last thing I'll say before I sign off here, you know, I get so many messages now, and I knew when I started doing these shows this was going to happen, and that's what I wanted, to get messages, and 90% of them are all positive, you know. And of course you get some idiots that say just stupid stuff, and that's fine. I don't care. Everybody, you know, you get your keyboard commandos out there. They're all tough behind the computer thing, but whatever. That doesn't bother me. I just discard those, and I actually say thank you, and, you know, kill them with kindness. But 95% of the stuff that you guys send for feedback is great, and I really, really appreciate it. This actually channel has taken off a little bit more, and a little bit more than I thought it would quickly, and a lot of it's because you guys are watching, and I appreciate that. You know, I mean, we got Johnny Dean's channel, we got Hazansky's channel, we got Broadbent's channel, we got Ben Coombs's channel, we got Tone Talk, we got Steve from Boston. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. We got a million, well, not a million, but we got a bunch of good folks out there that are putting out some real good quality stuff. Certainly better quality video than what I do. But I like talking about this stuff. It's been one of my passions, you know, for many years, along with firearms and martial arts and all that other stuff. And Van Halen and guitars has been something that I've been, you know, big into for 25 years. And building these things has been great, and it's caused me to do a lot of research. I mean, down to just little nitpicky things in order to make these amazing replicas. I'm not saying, I don't mean mine are all amazing, I don't mean it that way, but in order to make the best replica that I possibly can, you know, and you're always finding stuff out. I was just talking to Scott Smith about this the other day. We were on the phone chat, and we talk all the time. He's a good friend of mine. And we're just like, man, you know, it's like, remember back, you know, 15 years ago, we didn't have guys like Hubbard and Nick, and, you know, we were doing the stuff ourselves. We did a pretty good job. I mean, there's some of the guitars that, you know, I still got some of the ones I painted, you know, here. I've upgraded a few of them to have like Hubbard redo them, or Nick or whatever, because they do, you know, they have more patience than I do these days, you know, and they just, their technique is better than what I do, and they're a little bit more computer savvy to find the stuff online and to get the templates and all that. But we were just talking, and we were just like, man, it's amazing these guys, you know, today how things have changed. And, you know, we would go through, like I said earlier, circus magazines and guitar magazines and just little photos when we do the replicas, and you would do the best you could, but you couldn't see every little nick and cranny that, you know, and every little, you know, blemish or whatever you want to call it. You couldn't see that, but you did the best with what you had, and all in all, they came out pretty cool, and they were a lot of fun. But not just the paint job stuff. As stuff started to materialize, and more books came out, and, you know, the internet came out and exploded and everything, and we started seeing pictures of tuners and Floyd Rose bridges, and you know, tone knobs and switches, and, you know, just all this geeky stuff, you know, pinpointing what kind of a, you know, prototype nut it was on the neck. Yeah, like you said, Schaller double tabs and D-shaped drop tabs, and all, you know, all these cool stuff. You know, string retainers and string trees, and this list just goes on and on. So, you know, what sides were the eye bolts and stuff like that. And then we found out Eddie had his eye bolts welded to the washers, and I'm actually working on that now to have a bunch of stuff available for all you guys. It's going to be on Facebook once I get the whole product made. I'm gonna start putting them out, selling them, and whoever wants them, and it should be really cool. But it's been fun, and the funny thing is after all these years, you know, you think you know so much about this stuff, and then you see this magazine or you see this little thing like, whoa, I never knew that. Like I never knew that the neck that was on the Circles guitar was the one that was on the Frankenstein. That's on there now. I didn't know that's the same neck. I mean, you know, you kind of suspect some of the stuff, but then you see these, you know, pictures, and the guitar goes to the mat and everything, and everybody's taking these awesome pictures. Like, whoa, look at that, look at that, look at that, you know. So, I thank you for the compliment. I guess I have acquired a lot of good knowledge over the years, and from all of you guys, basically, is where I get most of my knowledge. It's from talking to people, it's from networking, it's from hanging out with people, and from playing guitar and looking at books and reading, and it's all just kind of fun stuff. It's geeky stuff, but it's fun because when you make a guitar, and whether you're making it yourself or you're having it made, it's not something you can buy off the shelf. It's different, and it is a piece of art. It's a work of art, and you obviously want to make it as accurate as you can. There is no such thing as a replica that's perfect, obviously. Nothing can be perfect. But the strive to continue to make it better never stops. So I'm still picking up guitars being like, oh, I got to do that to it. I'll take out a chisel and, you know, whatever, change this around or move this knob or switch this out. So it's fun. That's what makes it fun. But it's because of people like you enjoy it. That's what makes it fun to do it, you know, and certainly to show it. Diver Down was your first concert. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't see him until, well, I didn't see Van Halen until Balance. I'm old enough, I'm 45, so I mean I was certainly old enough to see him back in those days, but I loved Van Halen, but I didn't really start really becoming a massive fan till like 84, 86, you know, but I never really got around to going to the concerts, and then like in 95 I saw my first Van Halen show, and then it was just, you know, boom for me. That's cool though, I would have loved to see him Diver Down. Any idea where I could get a red, white, black custom front for my 5153 50-watt head? Red, white, black custom front. Do you mean like a grill? Is that what you're talking about? Hey, Tom Fox, greetings from the UK. Thanks, bud. I'm glad you got to check it out. I really appreciate that. Black Wolfgang, greetings from Italy. Hey, what's up, man? Awesome you guys are jumping in. We're just about ready to wrap up, but definitely rewind, and it's great to see you guys for sure. Yes, the grill. Okay, well, where can you get one? I don't think they really sell them, but here's what I did for mine. If you can see that, I striped my own. All right, I striped my 5150 PV, red, white, and black. Those were a little bit different because I got a wet, dry, wet rig here. Okay, there's my other one. I striped that. But those are different because you got to rip the grills off and then take the 5150s off, and then that's basically a board. All right. And behind it, then you paint it, and putting the grill back on is a pain. But you sound like you're talking about these. So if you want to do that, honestly, all you really got to do is just do what I did. This was a normal one. Just take your screws out. There's screws, all right? And the whole grill comes off, all right? And then you got 2 Allen screws here for the EVH. Take that off. And then you can just stripe it up and paint it and screw it back on because that comes off of the grill too. Hopefully you can see that. That's about as simple as you can do, and you might be able to find something on eBay, you know, somebody's selling, but I'm telling you, you're going to pay sick money for something like that, because people are going to want to capitalize on that. But I'm telling you, man, if you take a couple hours someday, a few cans of spray paint, use Duplicolor because that's the best stuff, and it dries fast, and it's the best stuff. I did a bumblebee style, but if you want to do red, black, and white, just tape it off. Take the grill off. Take the striping steel piece off. Tape it up. Spray your white. Spray your red. Spray your black. It's not quite like painting up a guitar. These are a lot more hard to do. That's simple. That's literally that took me maybe an hour and a half, and that's counting the time to take it off and put it back on. That's real simple. That's what I would do if I was you, and you can make it look just as good as you want, and you can stripe it up any way you want. But other than that, if you wanted to find one, you'd have to just kind of wait around because those aren't readily available. But yeah, I would definitely do that. definitely. It's worth it. It looks cool. I mean, I think they look neat. But yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna let you go. It is about 2:30 here in Northfield, Massachusetts, and I'm gonna go visit with some friends in a little bit. And now that it's that time, I'm gonna put a little vodka in this famous glass of mine, and start getting ready to party down for the weekend, for Memorial Day. And I wish you guys all the best Memorial Day. I really do. Thank you for watching. Tune in a few weeks, or a few days, a few weeks. Like I said, I kind of sneak attack you guys because I never know when I'm going to do the shows. But we will be doing some more. And like I said, I'm going to do some shows on fitness and stuff like that, core fitness. And for anybody that's interested, it's a little bit different than the guitar stuff, but you know, we'll have some fun for sure. But Ivan has later due too, and you're very welcome, Getchable. Very welcome. Thank you, all you guys. Tom Fox and Black Wolfgang, thanks for jumping in. It's great to see you guys from Italy and the UK. That is awesome. Please come back. Please rewind this show to the beginning when you have time and check it out, and check out some of the other ones and continue to watch. You guys are awesome. Rock on, guys.